Welcome to the RakkTalk Podcast. I am your host, Mark, and I'm with my co-host, Nate. And today's episode is episode 3, season 1, from battlefield to Homefront, to military veterans' journey to civilian life. Today we're going to be talking about the transition from military service to civilian life and the struggles that veterans face in the process. What's going on, Nate? How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How's life, man?
Oh, it's great, man. It's great.
Yeah. How's the weather there?
It got cold. It got down to like 20s last night here after having a week of 70-degree weather. Oh, by the way, I want you to check out my coffee mug.
Hey. Look at my coffee mug. It's Dunkin' Donuts. I like that coffee mug, though. Is it it's the 15 ounce, right?
Yeah. Yep. All right. Looks like we're live on Twitch, but LinkedIn did not go live. Oh, well. No worries. We'll figure it out another time. So yeah, let's get into it. I'll let you go first, man. You want to talk about the challenges that vets face when they leave military, such as adjusting to civilian culture and finding employment and dealing with mental health issues?
You start with that because my life in the military was different, remember, because I did mostly National Guard and Reserves.
Yeah.
So the life between National Guard and Reserves and civilian life kind of was balanced in a way. So I'll let you go first because you did more active, and then we'll talk about the whole Reserve or National Guard life.
Sure. So it was 2012 when I was leaving active duty. I just came off of a divorce and a deployment, the two big D's. And, yeah, so it was a high stress environment, within the surge with Afghanistan in 2010, 2011. But yeah, trying to figure out a place to live when you get back home, trying to figure out employment, unemployment, and then just trying to find a purpose again within the whole, civilian life was difficult. You didn't have the camaraderie that you had built with, your 12 to 15 close-knit group that you ran life-altering operations with on a daily basis. The struggle was hard. Like, I didn't know what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, and in the Army, you were trained to develop a plan and execute the plan, but you always had contingencies. But when you leave the military, your contingencies are almost non-existent because you have no way to know how you're going to make it. So right before you leave, I think it was 90 days out from your active ETS date, which is into term of service, you do go through a program called, what was that, TAP or something like that? It was, but it was a transition assistance program that the military helped you get your resume started, and they had a few job fairs for if you were local, and But if you weren't local, those job fairs didn't really help you. So you had to try to apply for positions when you were at home on leave, and you, depending on how much ETS leave you had saved up from your career, you only had that amount of time to live still on military pay, and you were still in the service, but and subject to recall during that ETS leave, but you still had to hustle and find a job. And, you know, coming out of a MOS in the Army that didn't really have future in the civilian world, like I was infantry, right? So it was high paced, kicking doors in, running patrols. Like that's not something that you can easily transition to. Even if you went from the infantry to the law enforcement, you still had to go through all the training. You had to do your time at the low end, so you couldn't just go back straight to doing what you knew to do. But yeah, I mean, half the time you felt lost.
So, with that being said, what kind of support did you have? Because you were transitioning out of the military, and you said that they were giving you, like, you had job fairs and stuff, but did they fully, like, help you? Did they offer assistance?
No. When I was leaving active duty, it was more or less a check the box type of thing back then. Now I'm not 100% sure what has changed in the last 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of things could have changed, and they could have very much improved, and I hope they did, but I'm not 100% on it. But there are tons of ways it could improve. Yeah. So the resume writing was huge, but I really would hope that they did more like skill-based training. Like, so if you were going from a combat MOS and you knew you wanted to do something after your deployment or in between deployments, like start training these guys and gals to do something more productive in the industry or in the world after or during the time. But yeah, it was just checking the box when I went through TAP. It was just like, you went through the seminar, you're cleared to exit, which wasn't a very good box to check, I guess, because once they spend so much money and time training a individual soldier from the time they sign their contract to the time that they go through basic training and advanced training schools and stuff like that. Like, they're very meticulous, but when it comes time to leave, they're just like, don't let the door hit you in the rear. You know what I'm saying?
Well, that's because you got to remember, in the military, we're expendable, right?
That is true. But if you're think of it, we're just expendable anywhere out in the civilian world.
Yeah.
I mean, if you died today, your current employer would replace you tomorrow with no sweat off their back.
Shit, they would replace you the same day while you're dead on the ground. What are you talking about?
Yep.
Most of them would, and that's the problem today. You know, all these companies say that they want to, they're hiring, they're looking for workers, but then when you apply, you may not have the full experience, but if you have some, then they're just like, oh, well, you don't have enough experience. Well, if you're hurting that bad, you're going to take someone that has a little bit of experience, because I promise you, the people that have the full experience aren't applying. They've already got a job.
And the way I look at it, even if you take a chance on a candidate that has zero experience and you take the time you take the time to train them, you also have an employee that's potential very loyal to you. You know what I mean? Because you gave them a shot, you gave them a chance, you gave them training, you taught them the industry and everything. You know, loyalty and integrity still counts for something, at least to me anyway. Maybe not to corporate America, but for me it does. You know, if I was a CEO of a company and I took 5 vets that didn't know shit about the company or the industry, and I took time to train them, you're 90% going to have 5 loyal employees because you took a chance on them, you trained them, you showed them the ways, and you taught them a valuable skill set. And just loyalty and integrity goes a long way in my book. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's the truth. And as veterans, that's what we learn. Well, we're supposed to learn, unless you're a shitbag, then you don't really learn it. You just pretend so that way you can skate by. But, pardon my language, but that's what we learn, right? Integrity, leadership, things like that, regardless of what branch you're in. Obviously, you know, the Army has their acronym for leadership and everything, but regardless of what branch you're in, that's what you learn. You learn integrity. You learn to do the right thing when no one's looking. And that's why, although it's hard to find a job coming out of the military, especially when, you know, you were a bullet chaser, you're better than me, but it's hard to find a job. So what's going to happen when somebody does give us a chance? We're automatically going to be like, well, shit, I got to prove my loyalty. I got to prove that I am a good worker and I have a good work ethic because I need this job.
Yeah.
But now we're in 2023 and everybody's just like, well, pay me. I don't want to do that work though, but pay me. I want the money. Give me the money. And these companies are hurting because nobody wants to come to work because, oh, you overworked me. Well, shit, join the military then. Find out what it's like to be overworked.
Like if you if you feel like you're overworked, be in the military because you're very overworked, underpaid, and underappreciated.
100%. I remember when I was deployed and we had there was so many people complaining, like, why are we working 7 days a week, 12-hour days plus? And I'm just sitting back like, is that a question? Are we really asking that? And then we had to have like this big old meeting for the captain to just tell everybody, shut up. Like, we're in a combat zone. You're working every day. If you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, he did tell people if they didn't like it, he'll just chapter them out and get them out of the military because there's no point of them being in the military if you can't handle it. But yeah, I was thrown back. Like, I mean, you know, so I think when the unit I deployed with maybe had a couple 18-year-olds, but a lot of them were a little bit older, right? So as adults, we understand that we have to work. Like, you have to work. Sitting there complaining about it all the time isn't going to get you anywhere. And I just didn't understand why we had to have a meeting. Like, why do we have to have a meeting? We're adults. But and in the civilian world, it's like, I talked to a couple of people that transitioned out of the military as military police. So they went to the law enforcement. I don't know if it was a city cop, sheriff, whatever. And they were told automatically, well, whatever you learn in the military, forget. That's not how we do it here. And it's like, okay, well, if say you were in 10 years as a military police, how do you just learn or forget all of what you learned right away? Like, that's the whole point of transitioning, is we're supposed to transition to try to understand the civilian ways, right? So to just tell them, well, just forget everything you learned. But you can't do that overnight, man. It's going to take months. I mean, I just, the civilian world is different. Like, things are just different. And I'm sure for you, like, it was a struggle. It was a struggle. And a lot of people that are coming from active duty. And I feel like that's why a lot of people, when they leave active duty, they go straight to like reserves or something, because, well, it's still a way for them to enjoy it, right? It's still a way for them to do it. Whereas,
and it's a way to continue to develop the close-knit community and family that you had while in active that you can't find in the civilian world. Don't get me wrong, like family was huge, you know what I mean? They play a huge part in a service member's transition. You know, that gives them a security net to fall on, but it's not the same. You know what I'm saying? It's definitely not the same as, you know, the 10 guys that, you know, I lived in the dirt with for a year. You know what I'm saying? Or we spent 45 days chasing Taliban out of an area, and we literally slept in the dirt. No shower, no, you know, digging trenches to use the bathroom in, but it's not the same. I love my family to death, but they're not the same as my brothers and that I served with, you know. And that brings up a great point about the huge learning curve that you have to undergo that you had in the military to civilian life is it's just huge.
That's the thing, dude, is obviously we love our families. We love the support. We love some of us are, you know, like our significant others and our children, but it's not the same because you got to go and you got to look back and you got to think, okay, I was with these people. I was with these people for how many months, how many days, how many hours, and I was doing this, and I literally had my life on the line. They had their life on the line. We literally protected each other. To come home and then the family be like, well, I don't understand what's going on. Like, what's wrong with you? And, you know, it's not that we don't want to keep our family close to us and for them to know things, but it's more so of this is my bond with my brothers in arms opposed to this is my bond with my family. And it's really hard because I know I've had experiences and I've had to talk to people about it because they're just like, well, I don't know what to do. Let's just use a mother. My mother doesn't understand why I am the way I am. She doesn't understand why I can talk easily to a vet, but I can't talk to her, or, you know, and it's hard to explain. It's hard to fully get them to understand because they weren't there. They didn't live it. They didn't live what you went through. Whether, even if it wasn't like, you know, you were deployment and you didn't have to chase Taliban or you didn't have to do anything, but you still went 3,000 miles away from anybody and spent, well, for me, it was a year, but
You muted, Nate.
I've been talking this whole time and nothing's come through.
Parts of it, you just muted like halfway through.
I don't know how I didn't even touch the mic. This is funny. I love technology. Technology is about as good as the military when you're leaving, right? But no, basically all I was saying is when you really look at it, man, there's things that you're going to have with your with that bond that you have with the people you're in the military with. And there's going to be things that you bond with your family on the outside. And we can't expect the civilians to understand. We can't expect them to completely know what's going on in our minds. And some of them get upset. Some of them don't understand. And it's not that we're trying to make anybody upset. It's not that we're trying to keep things from people, but it's a different, what's the word? It's a different outcome. It's a different outlook for us. Like you said, you chased Taliban. You sat in the dirt for how many days with the same people. Your experience in the military is not relatable to your experience in the civilian world.
Right. And that experience varies from one vet to another, the same as they process trauma, right? So, you know, my ways of processing trauma and the ways that somebody else processes trauma is different as well. But, there's a saying that I always had is, come join the military, experience may vary,
Right. And that's the thing. I think we've talked about this with Kat before. Like those of us that signed our name on the dotted line, we all made a commitment. We all just made a choice, right?
Yeah.
And I know I made a comment last episode, I think, possibly, that in my mind, like you said, we all fight something inside regardless. It's just a lot harder when you've been deployed, when you've had to be away from family for a certain amount of time, whether it's 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. Hell, there's people that went 18 months. It's a lot harder than, say, I was in for 4 years and I didn't do anything. And I don't mean that as I didn't do anything. I signed my name on the line, I put the uniform on, whatever. But when you go away and you have to see things you don't want to see, you have to do things you don't want to do, you have to go into an environment that you've never been in and you have no idea what's going to happen. That's a lot different than saying, yeah, I spent 4 years in the States doing nothing except for working in a motor pool or doing whatever, right? So
exactly.
We all experienced the military. We all signed our name on the dotted line. We all chose to wear that uniform. But people like myself or you or Cap or those people that actually had to go witness something other than the United States life, in my opinion, it's that's different. That's different than the guy that I worked with before that did 4 years and had no issues. Okay, well, I understand you may have some inside issues, like some mental issues, but you didn't get that from the military. I promise you. You didn't get that from the military. That was before the military, and you somehow were able to twist it at the VA and tell them, and then they took it as, okay, well, whatever. But it's
I'd like to challenge you on this with that. It's potentially, I was in a MOS where we were hard on the kids that we got. And there's a few that broke, what I'm saying, mentally broke during the training phases up to another deployment. I'm not necessarily saying that he didn't have beginning issues, but there's a lot of stuff that happens in the military, like like sexual trauma and stuff like that. I mean, anything's possible. I don't put it past. There are people out there that game the system, but there's also a lot of people out there that may only serve 2 years and be medically retired because of their mental capacity couldn't handle what goes on in the military. Even in the training phases, you treat it like it's a real deployment most of the time, especially out in training. You're hard on your team leaders, have to be hard on the guys to make sure that they come home. That once we hit boots on ground, there is no reset. There is no index. Like you're getting ready to hit where metal meets flesh. You know what I'm saying? Just especially for us. So we were super hard on these 18-year-old kids that was fresh out of high school or fresh off the GED system that never experienced a smidge of life. And when I went in, I already had 2 kids. So I was already a dad and a husband as a private. So, what I'm saying? I've already had my start of life. So, and I knew how hard life could punch in the gut. But there's kids out there that have no idea, and they choose, hey, I'm going to go in infantry because I want to go shoot stuff and blow shit up, right? And their mind just breaks. And I had 2 that went to a mental institution after 9 months of being in the unit. And that's right. You don't want to send them into a hostile environment that is extremely dangerous if their mind's broken, right? So we'll put them in another unit and send them out of the military. But you want a guy that's mentally, physically fit enough to do the job, so that he carries his buddy and his buddy can carry him, and they're not a burden or a liability to the team when it's go time.
And those are good challenges, right? Like you're right. You don't have to deploy, I guess, to get like have sexual trauma or things like that. And those are like special circumstances, though, right? So in that case, then obviously, if you're in the military and you get sexually assaulted or anything kind of sexual trauma, obviously that the VA, you need that assistance, right? Because it happened while you were on their time. My what I was explaining was more so of the people that were just shitbags anyway, and that they didn't do anything. They didn't have any troubles. And the only people that I really know that have, like, say with the VA disability that have 100% are they, and because sexual trauma can happen to male or female, right? Generally it happens more to females, and I can find statistics for that with the military and everything if I need to, but it happens more with females, right? But most of the people I talk to are males, and none of them I've had deep conversations with people. I've sat in before of therapy sessions, and you can just, I don't know. In my opinion, since I'm in psychology and I'm going to school for everything, I've learned to like read how a person is. So like if a person's sitting there talking and you can tell if their anxiety is shown or if they're anxious or basically if they're lying or whatnot. And that's what I've learned to do is read certain people and read things, right? But you're right, 100%, dude. I cannot deny about what you said. Like, I feel like the part you said about you guys were hard on soldiers and stuff, I feel like that's the military though. Like,
it's 100%.
That's what military. We do, right? Like we're higher rank, and not even higher rank by like I'm a sergeant. You're not. I'm just saying like we've been in longer, right? So we get these quote unquote newbies, and so we're like, haha, let's do this, and let's make sure that they're soldier approved. Let's make sure that they're military able, right? Because when you join the military, you kind of got to have tough skin, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just go to basic training and it's all, well, I don't know what it is now. I've heard it all got soft lately, but it's not like it was back then. So, but to clarify, yes, you are right. There are certain challenges, certain circumstances where even if you don't deploy, that you still deserve to be taken care of. And that's like, we talk with Cap a lot about like the LGBTQ community and everything. And I'm not going to get into much of that, but yeah. I did a whole paper, like it was 7 pages for a class. I had to do a paper on, I don't remember what the class was, but I chose like the LGBTQ community veterans that, back in the day, they were kicked out because of their sexual preference, their sexual orientation.
Yeah.
And
the don't ask, don't tell policy.
Right. All of that. And I did a whole, not going to brag, but I got 100% on it. Got an A plus on it. But come to find out, we're actually working towards the right step of helping them now. They're getting their benefits. They're starting to get the stuff that they deserve before they were, in my opinion, illegally kicked out because of what? To me, if you can hold a gun and you can defend my back, we're good to go. But
yeah. And that's 100% my stance on females being in combat arms is like, if you can carry your own weight and you can put rounds down range in the right direction, and you're just as combat sound as a male, let's roll. You know, I don't have a problem going through that front door with anybody, as long as they were the same physically and mentally sound as I was with being able to do the job. If you can do the job, let's roll, you know.
And that's the sad part, though, is back in the day, and I probably have the article somewhere or a couple articles about it, because I mean, I did my research, man. I didn't just be like, oh, I want to do this topic and then I'm going to write a paper. Like, I legit wrote a long paper, and to me, it looked like they just, well, you're in that community, so you're out, and that's ridiculous. So their whole time, because I don't know if it's necessarily happening more now, and if it is, we don't hear about it anymore. But they've been spending years to get the benefits they deserve. So that's another one of those things where you know, like you mentioned the sexual trauma and all that. That's another thing where it's like, well, this is what they deserve. They deserve this. Now, if you made people break because you guys were tough on them, to me, that's the military. You're supposed to come into the military knowing that you're going to be challenged. You come into the military not expecting to be sexually assaulted. You come in the military not expecting them to treat you differently because of your sexual preference. But you're supposed to be, and unless I'm wrong, and I could be, because I am a lot, but you've been taught your whole life, and you've read and you've watched and you've seen that the military is hard. That you're going to get stuff when you get in the military from people. That's just how it is. Hell, in civilian world, you go to some businesses or some jobs, depending on the job, and what do? They pick on you.
Turn your mic volume up a little bit.
My mic's volume's all the way up.
Oh.
Let me try again. Hold on. How about now? Even on this screen, it's all the way up.
Yeah, I even turned mine down some to try to level them out.
But even in the civilian world, I mean, it's the same way. Like, you go into some jobs and they give you crap. They mess with you. They joke around with you. They tell you to do things. And I mean, I guess I don't know. I don't feel like that part is a reason for me. You know what I'm saying? The other ones, yes, but just because you gave them a hard time and you made them break, I mean, shit, when I went to basic training, before we even started basic, the very first thing we were told was you need to be ready for anything. If you don't think you can handle certain things, now's the time to leave. And we had people leave. Hell, we had a dude threaten to commit suicide because he wanted to go home, even though he was still there after I graduated basic training. But that's the whole point of the military. That's what the military is.
Right.
Now, the other things that we talked about, that's not the point of the military. If you're willing to sign your name on the line, and then that doesn't mean you're coming in there and people get free reign. That means that you get to sign your name on the line, and you're choosing to do what everybody else is doing. So
yeah, that makes sense. So, you know, the challenges that veterans face when they leave the military, such as adjusting to the civilian culture, man, like it's difficult, you know. But what is something that vets can do to find purpose and meaning in civilian life? You know, after serving in the military, you know, you just like dumped in the civilian world. You don't know what your purpose is and how that's life altering and damning. So what do you think is a good way for vets to, you know, find purpose again?
I think you need to have a good support group. And that don't necessarily mean just your family, like a good support group, because a good support group is going to help continue on the path of life. It's going to help you, right? If you feel alone, or if you're alone, then you're not going to be motivated to keep pushing forward. You've got different programs. You got the Wounded Warrior Project alumni, where you go on, they send you weekly the thing about events and stuff. Basically, to me, a support group, that's the biggest thing to help find your purpose and meaning. Because you could get out of the military and just be like, okay, well, all I did was chase bullets. I don't really understand what I'm supposed to do now. But when you start hanging out with likewise individuals and you guys start talking and you start figuring out, like with us, like, I mean, I didn't chase bullets, but our purpose for our life right now is to do this podcast and to talk and to help people, right?
Yep.
So hold on one second. You start talking for right now.
Yeah. So, the culture shock, it is a huge culture shock. You're no longer wearing the uniform. You're no longer have that super set routine where you know what time you have to get up every morning to make sure you can shave before PT formation first thing in the morning. And, knowing that, hey, I'm going to be gone tonight because we're doing an overnight range or anything like that. You wake up and you're like, man, I don't know what to do today. It's just like, even if you develop a routine at a company that you worked at forever and they just call you the next day and be like, hey, we're getting rid of your position, and you kind of like feel lost again. You know what I'm saying? So it's a huge culture shock.
Right. Now I can hear. So, sorry. I had loud noises in my head. And then I lost my train of thought because I was responding to chat. But remind me where we are. My memory is terrible. We're talking about the meaning and purpose of life.
Yeah, finding purpose again.
So, just real quick, let me ask you, what did you, obviously the podcast now, but you've been out since 2012, right?
Yeah, I've been off active duty since 2012 and out of the reserve since 2017.
Oh, okay. So I got out of the reserves in 18. Well, really, technically 16 because of the 2 years IRR. But what did you do though? Like, what did you figure out? Because I know, like, recently with your job and removing your position, and I know that's a struggle. That's not what we're going to talk about today. But what did you feel your purpose was even after the reserves? Because regardless of what people say and the jokes that people make and everything, the reserves do the same thing, right? We all put a uniform on. We all signed the line. We all did the uniform. Hell, when I went to basic training, it didn't matter what MOS I was still a bullet chaser. I was infantry regardless. Good old Fort Benning. I loved Fort Benning, dude. That was one of the best bases I've been to. But what was your purpose? Did you know as soon as you got out of the reserves?
No.
Did you? No.
So I was just doing infantry shit jobs. We either go into law enforcement or security, right? So, and I didn't. It wasn't until we got into my youngest's autism journey that, I even developed a small sense, like even a small sense of a purpose again to take on software development and software engineering, with her relying on technology to communicate. And literally it wasn't up until January that, I got word that old first sergeant passed. And what he did for me after while I was going through separation and divorce on active duty to my first wife, that, he made sure that because I was ETS and off active duty, he made sure that I were able to be home at night with my oldest two kids, right? Because I ended up with guardianship of them.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it was kind of the kick in the ass that I needed to create the podcast, and the purpose and the drive that I have found with the podcast and felt from the podcast was nothing short of almost being as high level as being in the military. The purpose and drive that I had found was to serve my brothers and sisters again, right? Serve with my brothers and sisters, to a way to give back to my brothers and sisters. So with that mission in mind, I wanted to take the struggles of what I went through and trying to find resources and organizations that help veterans on a day-to-day basis that we may not know about. And just to throw one out there, because they're going to be on a podcast coming soon, and I'll go ahead and give a little bit of a plug, is VGMH, Veterans Gaming, mental health mission. I'd have never known about it if I didn't get into the streaming world, period. Never known about it. You know what I'm saying? And it's organizations like that one and many, many others that we just don't know about. And I seriously stumbled on another organization that has dramatically changed my life that I didn't even know about. And I'm sure there's thousands of other veterans out there that didn't know about it until, and there's a lot of you guys that didn't know about it. That's in my close-knit circle that we've created on the streaming world and platform that didn't know about until I started talking about how much it's changed my life, was Catch a Lift Fund. They're going to be there. They 100% said they wanted to be on the podcast. I try to help bring their program to more veterans that change people's lives through health and wellness. So, it's small bridges like that cross some of the deepest canyons. You know what I'm saying? And I want to be that bridge, but I have to build a small bridge and then just keep, building a bigger bridge. And that's what I wanted to do. And then when you got to talking to me, it's like, man, I have this purpose that I want to find about, I also want to do a podcast, but mental health. I'm like, dude, just come on, come on full time as a co-host at the RakkTalk Podcast, and we'll do this together because, it's always easier to have two in the fight versus one. You know what I'm saying? And we're building a bigger team.
That's what we learned in the military, right? Is to always have a battle buddy.
Yep.
Plus, there's could be some things that you're better at doing than I am when it comes to like doing certain things for the podcast. And there's things that I could be better at than you are at doing. And I don't mean better at like I'm better than you, you're better than me. But I mean, I'm saying like we put our minds together, and that's why we also have the group, right? That helps as well. Because great minds think alike. We both have the same ideas. We both want to do the same purpose. So together right now, I mean, yeah, you could do it by yourself, and I know that, and that's why I'm honored to be here with you. But together, we literally have multiple stories. We've been putting together multiple resources between states and everything. Like, it is literally better to have both of our minds plus the minds of the people that aren't on here right now than to try to do everything alone individually. So, again, I just want to throw out that I'm honored to be here.
And dude, I'm honored to have you. I'm honored to have Captain Cool Whip on the board. You know, I'm honored to have the non-veterans that are on the board, you know, Mandy and Zach, because without them two, the podcast would have probably never officially launched. You know, it was those two that were, you know, instrumental in helping guide and keeping me target focused. You know what I'm saying? Instead of just taking a shotgun in a long range shooting match, they were able to help me zero in with the rifle. You know what I'm saying? So it was very important to have them on the team going forward.
Right. So real quick before we move on to the next topic or the next thing, let me just throw in there real quick because someone came in my chat and said, what did he say? The amount of crap I got for joining the National Guard. So we're not going to get all on that. That can be a topic for a different day and talk about that. But remember, this whole episode is about transitioning from military to civilian life, and obviously you were full-time active duty. I joined the military late. When I went to join, supposedly at that time there was a waiting list for active duty. Active duty sent me to National Guard. Like, they literally gave me a name and a contact and said, here, and I was enlisted within a month. So my whole career was active duty and reserve, or National Guard and reserve. And like I told him in my chat, I literally I've done more in the time that I was in the military than some of the guys that I know that are still on active duty. Like, they haven't went anywhere. They've just been on active duty. So National Guard reserves, Air National Guard, I think there's a Marine Reserve, all that. They all get slack, or get crap, but for what? They're doing the same thing. They're putting a uniform on. So when you're National Guard or reserves, obviously you only drill 1 week in a month. During the summer, you get like, hell, the longest I think I went was a 3-week or 4-week training session. But we all did the same exact thing. And this is the God honest truth, and this is from experience. We worked harder than that some active duty units. When I was we were being relieved from when we were deployed, when we were getting ready to come home, that active duty unit had no idea how to do what we were doing. So what's that tell you? That tells you that they don't really do a lot. And this is no way, shape, or form trying to go against anybody, because again, we all put the same uniform on. But the military is going to give each other junk. We joke with branches all the time. We talk about the chair force, you know, how the Navy, and we all make jokes, right? Because we're all brothers and sisters in arms. It's not really as fun when you have a civilian trying to make military jokes, but whatever. It doesn't matter if you're National Guard, Reserve, active duty, Coast Guard, Space Force, whatever. We all generally do the same thing. So to get crap, that's okay if it's just in a joking way. But anyway, so Um, Loud noises. So, anyway, my life in the military wasn't nonstop, put a uniform on every day, go to the motor pool or go do whatever my job was, right? So, on the outside world, in the civilian world, because I was kind of a civilian too, I had a job. But see, when I joined the military and I joined National Guard and I picked my career and that I wanted to do and everything, I also signed up for multiple training classes. Like I was sent, not necessarily all over the United States, but I was sent into different states to do 1 week, 2 week trainings because I wanted to learn as much as I could. I wanted to constantly be wearing that uniform. However, when I decided that, okay, I put in my time, enough time now, I want to try to go active duty. When I tried to go active duty, instead of actually, them saying, well, yeah, we have that same position in this active duty unit, I was constantly told, well, the only way you can go active duty is special forces. Okay, well, I'm older. I have 3 kids and a family. I don't want to do special forces. I'm sorry. And then I got called a coward, I think, once. Told me I was a coward because I didn't want to do special forces, which is okay. That's fine. I mean, you can call me whatever name in the book you want. Don't hurt my feelings. But it's just that I had a civilian job. I had to take care of my family when I wasn't drilling. I had to take care of my family during the summer when I wasn't at training. But it still was hard because even today I'm still like, man, if I wasn't broken and mentally screwed up and this, that, and the other, I'd put the uniform on every day again. If I could, you're muted. But yeah, I would, even if it's just recruiting, dude. Like if you could just let me put a uniform on and recruit, I'd be happy. I don't care. But that's because a lot of people in the National Guard and a lot of in the reserves, you see a lot of shitbags. You see a lot of people that just don't take it seriously. And you hardly ever see the ones that do anymore. And that's what makes people, that's why the National Guard and the reserves, they all get the shit for it because, well, you got a lot of shit soldiers. And that's what sucks, man. It just sucks because I still deployed. I still went for 12 months away from my family. Hell, I didn't even have a homecoming when I got home. But either way, I'm just saying, like, I still did the same things that active duty did, if not better, because I was using less equipment. You know what I'm saying? Like less things. So for anybody that's listening, if you're National Guard reserves or you were, and you feel like, well, I wasn't really a soldier or I got shit all the time, it doesn't matter. You still put the damn uniform on. You still did what you felt you needed to do for your country. Doesn't matter if you were a tampon or whatever they call you, nasty girl, it doesn't matter. But transitioning fully to the civilian world after being in the National Guard or Reserves is still kind of hard because you still got to figure out, what am I going to do with what I learned in the military? If that makes sense. But I just wanted to touch on that because I got that comment in there and then I wanted to throw it out there. But then he had to disappear and mute his mic.
No, I'm back. Sorry.
No, you're good. I get it. I had to do that a few minutes ago when my dogs were barking. But
yeah,
it's not the same as coming from active duty to trying to transition to the civilian life, and I get that. But that doesn't make that active duty guy transitioning to civilian life and me transitioning to fully civilian life any different. We're both the same. I just chose to do it a different way.
Yeah, and my one, it's a huge transition in itself to leave active duty or any military services. So I would personally say if you're leaving active duty and you have time left, go into the reserves or National Guard. It'll help. I think it will help a ton with the transition. Number one, even as part-time, you still have military benefits. Number two, you still can develop the camaraderie and the close-knit group that you have with your brothers and sisters in arms. And number three, you're easing out of something huge, right? So if you go from full-time to part-time military, you still have that guaranteed paycheck as long as you show up. You still have the friends and the close-knit group and the camaraderie, and you still have half of your time left to find purpose and meaning in the civilian world and a civilian career.
I guess I forgot to turn that sound alert off.
All good.
No,
Yeah.
it's really loud. Anyway, I heard most of what you were saying, and a lot of people do that. A lot of people do that. Is they'll get out of active duty and they'll realize, okay, well, this isn't working, so I'm going to do this, and then they'll go into the reserves or the National Guard, and then they'll find not necessarily a full purpose, but they'll find their purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm only doing this 1 week in a month, but I have my outside world now. So, and I feel like that's easier to transition from military to civilian life if you're able to live the civilian life as well as the uniform life.
Yeah,
but
and the one part-time service I think I would recommend for anybody that's struggling for finding a purpose is the National Guard. Biggest is you still get deployed within your state to help your community members, and that's huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the reason why we joined, was the service to something bigger than ourselves. And even during a national disaster, you're still able to provide that service to your community members, which is your community is bigger than yourself. So
right.
I should have went National Guard and not done reserves, and I think I would have found a better purpose in a lot faster and timely manner than I have not, and just going into the reserves.
Right. And that's the thing is with the National Guard, because I never experienced it in the reserves, but with the National Guard, like you said, I mean, you get to help your country as well, right? So a natural disaster happens. If they need it, they deploy the National Guard. So you not only technically, quote unquote, have a deployment, but you're helping. You're building with the community or some community. And yeah, it sucks because some people in the National Guard, depending on what their MOS is and where they have to be sent for a natural disaster, they see some things that, can pretty much scar you for the rest of your life. And that sucks. But they still stepped up. And that's not what a lot of people do. So yeah, I agree 100%.
So if you catch shit for being in the National Guard, just remember you serve two fronts, okay? You get called up and activated at a time of war for your federal service, but you also get called up and activated for your state service during a time of national disaster, time and disasters. So do not let anyone take your service away from you, period.
And that's the key word right there. Say that again. Say that phrase again.
Do not let anyone take your service away from you, period.
There you go. And that
You
that
still
happens
serve,
all
and
too much.
National Guard sometimes serves twice as much. You got state service and federal service. And do not let anybody take that shit away from you, period. Period. You heard it here first at the RakkTalk Podcast.
And if they want to try to take it away from me, send them to me. I have no problems. I like to have fun. I have a couple people that have my back too.
Yeah, we'll banter back and forth. You know, it's you still served, and you served your state and your country. So I'll stand behind you and have your back any day of the week.
Exactly. IGY6.
Look, man,
So
we're coming up close to the end.
yeah, do you want to discuss real quick, like some future things happening with this?
So you know, we're starting a charity. We haven't fully 100% rolled it out, but we're going to start purchasing items for homeless vets and try to talk to local food restaurants and stuff like that to get coupons for free meals to put inside these care packages for our homeless vets out there. And within the care package, pockets of the hoodies during the winter. And we are going to put in a card that we have laminated glossy to withstand the elements of resources that they can reach out to.
Plus, we got some social media stuff going on where we got, you know, the YouTube now, and we got things like that, the different little shorts going on. We're trying to make this not necessarily like we're trying to be famous and blow up, but we're trying to help, right? So the more we get out there and show, the more people are going to realize that there is help. And I get it. There's organizations out there for veterans. There's this and there's that. And there's probably other podcasts out there for veterans too. But we're different, right? We're just two people trying to help.
Where we're different is we're not on the positive, not just on the positive messages and the affirmations and bringing in celebrity veterans. Like I want to bridge the gap between any resource available to veterans and the veterans that may not know about them for right now. That's our main focus. That's our main mission. And we want to be able to give a space where veterans can come in, tell their stories of their struggles, their mental health battles, their road to recovery, whether it's from substance abuse and what resources they use that we may not know about. You know what I'm saying? I'm almost 6 months sober from drinking, and I just used my own resource, you know, as myself, like, look, you're not going to do it anymore. This is done. We're done. And I've been like that every day for the last 5 months. Going on 6. But there's people out there that can't do it without a resource, and that's perfectly fine.
Congrats, by the way.
Huh?
Said congrats, by the way.
Thanks, man. But there's people out there that need resources and may have struggled to find them, but when they did, there might be 5 more vets that don't know about it, or just in general people that these organizations may serve the general public versus a niche group. So we want to bridge that gap of list of resources, and we're working on building a database. So if you have any resources that you used and all the contact information, please email them to resources@rakktalkpodcast.com, and we'll get them added to the database. So if somebody reaches out looking for the resource, we can point them in the right direction and help them.
Amen.
But
got a good thing going here, man. So
yeah, and it's gonna be great. We got a good team started, and the team's just going to continue to grow.
I do want to throw out there real quick, though, before we end this, because I know it's about that time. If there's anybody out there, obviously this is a main podcast for veterans, but I do want to throw out there about civilians as well, because civilians suffer from mental health too, right? And that's why I'm going to school for what I'm going to school for. But anybody, if there's anybody out there that needs to talk, get a hold of one of us. Get a hold of anybody. Mainly, if it's really bad, then you need to contact the National Suicide Prevention Line, or the suicide hotline for the veterans.
Yeah, it's you literally can dial 988 immediately, followed by the number 1, and you'll reach the Veterans Crisis Line. Or if you're a civilian, you can easily dial 988 and reach them quickly as well.
But if you just need to chat, if you just have something you want to get off, hit one of us up. Get a hold of us. We're here. This is what we do.
Yep.
I don't care if you're civilian, if you're a veteran, whatever. Just talk, because you're not alone. I don't want people to feel alone. That's the problem with society today, is some people don't have the financial ability to go get help, right? And that's why we're here. That's what we're here for. We're here to help. Also, if you want to be a guest at some point in time, get a hold of one of us.
Yeah, if you have an organization that or someone that directly services the mental health or veterans in general, email us at info@RakkTalkPodcast.com, and we will schedule a call to get people lined out. We want to highlight your organization, your business, if you serve veterans, and or you service in the mental health. We need to add you to our database too. So reach out to us. We'll get your information in the database, and once the website, RakkTalkPodcast.com, is finished, you'll be able to go on the website and research and pull up resources in your area.
And just remember, too, that while our main focus is obviously mental health, we can find other resources as well.
Yep.
That's all I got.
We're used trying to find resources and everything. With that being said, I think today was a great episode. Mm-hmm. You can find us at Spotify, the RakkTalk Podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeart Radio, all the major music platforms. We are on Amazon Music. And this episode will immediately be uploaded this evening. So it'll be live today.
Well, I appreciate you.
I appreciate you, Nate.
I'm sure we'll be in contact. For everyone listening, y'all have a great day. Keep your heads up. You're not alone.
And if you or someone you know may be struggling with suicidal thoughts, you can call the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK anytime, day or night, or chat online. Crisis Text Line also provides free 24/7 confidential support via text message to people in crisis when they dial 741-741 or dial 988. And if you're a veteran needing the Veteran Crisis Line, you can dial 988 immediately followed by the 1. We love you, and thanks for tuning in.